got to do something bold and different in our schools and in our district. So Destination 2035 is a plan to be bold and different. And yes, it's going to cause some anxiety. It does bring a lot of change. That's right. But that's what's required right now in the district and in the nation. But I'm focused on HISD kids. That's what's required. So we will do 150 schools, new education system schools, using whole-scale systemic reform, fundamentally different, to significantly narrow the achievement gaps, but also prepare kids for the year 2035 workplace. We're not going to ignore the other schools, the other 123 schools. We're also going to help them improve their instruction and raise their achievement. But those schools that are not part of the 150 are doing fairly well now. Indeed, one of the biggest challenges we have as a district is that we are a tale of two cities. We have schools doing well over here, and we can be very proud of that. We don't want to bring them down. We want them to keep doing good things for kids. Some of our magnet schools are some of the strongest. Some of our traditional schools are doing really well. And then we have a whole bunch of schools over here that are not doing well, not equitably resourced. And we've got to make sure that all of the kids get the resources they need to prepare for the year 2035. So that's the vision. That's why you see us working with urgency. That's why you see me and the board and the core team here not waiting for a whole year. We can't afford another year. I mean, the adults can, but the kids cannot. They don't have time for us to wait another year before we start to significantly, fundamentally reform and transform the district. So what does that word mean? What does transform mean? What does transformation mean for the schools? I'm going to race through these. And I apologize. I know the media is probably tired of hearing these, but there's many people online, I'm sure, I have not heard this presentation. So I wanted to make sure I at least go through these slides for that group. So it means we have to change the teaching profession. We have to have higher salaries. We have to have a more focus on instruction and get our effective teachers. Effective teachers are still skilled jobs, and we will need effective teachers well into the future. So we have to pay them better, and we have to focus on instruction. We have to have leaders, principals, APs, who are coaches, supporting staff members with real-time feedback, on-the-job feedback. That is a different way of evaluating teachers and assessing their effectiveness and actually helping them improve. We have to push supports. I know this is a busy slide, but basically what it means is that we're pushing supports to the schools, to the divisions, to the areas, so that you won't have as many people in Hattie Mae here. You're going to have more support closer to the schools. We're going to, let me back up real quick. We're going to have to staff differently. So we have to have a staffing model where we're focused on quality instruction every day. That means we have to have teacher apprentices. That means we have to have learning coaches so that we minimize vacancies every day or absences every day. And, and not that substitutes don't do the job that they're paid to do, but we have to have fewer subs in the building and more teacher apprentices in the building. Talked about teacher apprentices, learning coaches. We have to really get the science of reading right. Science of reading is all about making sure kids can decode and also have language comprehension. That's what those letters stand for. And so we've got to do better with that, and we've got to make sure kids can, at a minimum, read well. Because still in the year 2035, reading is an important skill. We will continue dual language education. We know that having two languages is a lot better, infinitely more employable if you can speak two languages rather than one. Although we will continue to have the science reading, we will also continue to have some classes in Spanish. You've seen this graph again, but this time I circled or highlighted the special ed supports. We've got to do better by special ed students, our special needs students. Part of it is our problem as a profession. We have placed way too many requirements on special ed teachers. Not only do we expect them to teach well, but we also expect them to do all these compliance and reports, and we've got to help them with that. So we'll be supplying special education assistants, not paraeducators, skilled people who can help the special education teacher. What does it mean for the classroom? The biggest thing is this notion of professionalizing the classroom experience for the teacher. What does that mean? That means we've got to cut down on all the other things we require teachers to do. We require teachers to do way too much. And we're losing teachers to the profession, partly because we're asking them to do too much, and things just get more and more things get put on their plate. So if you look at what we're going to do in the NES and the NES aligned schools, discipline will be handled by administrators. Lesson plans will be created for the teachers. The curriculum developers will do that. They will have their PowerPoints, their demonstrations of learning, their differentiated assignments, answer keys made for them. Copies will be made for them. Papers will be graded by support personnel, not the demonstration of learning during class, but outside of class. Papers are graded by other people, not the teacher. And that last bullet is that they have only one duty period a week, so 4 in a month. Eventually, we need to take duty away from them. And once we get more money, we will do that. So we're professionalizing it. This is better for work-life balance. A teacher in this model can leave at 4:15 and they will be done. And they can take care of their family, cook dinner, recharge, and come back to school the next day ready to teach like champions, because that's what they're focused on. We will have a slightly different classroom environment. Yes, we'll still have desks and chairs and things, but we'll also have webcams and ViewSonics, interactive smartboards, and other technology in the classroom. Now, some things are old-fashioned. This is nothing new. This is not particularly innovative. This is just a safe and orderly environment that we will enforce in all of our schools. We won't change the discipline policy that the schools outside the NES and NES aligned schools have. But basically, there are 3 expectations: no disrespect to any adult, can't disrupt the learning environment, and no bullying. Those are pretty simple, and 99% of all parents want this for their kid in a classroom in school. For the student, we will open our doors at 6:30 and close at 5. So students can come to school early, be dropped off. They will be safe. They can either be in the cafeteria or what we call the team center until instruction starts at 8 o'clock. We're talking about high quality instruction every day for every student. That's the goal for every school. A lot more engagement, so kids doing the work, less teacher talk, more work in small groups. You know, in the year 2035 environment, we're talking about kids working in teams and problem solving together. So we've got to start that early. Year 2035 competencies, I just alluded to that. What I mean by year 2035 competencies is information literacy, problem solving, decision making, learning how to learn, critical thinking, communications, working in teams. Those are all competencies that businesses say they want. The world is moving in that direction because we're going to have to learn to work in a different working environment. So this is more of the same art of thinking, learning how to learn. That's part of the curriculum. And then, people sometimes think we're not engaged in the whole child. We are. We're engaged in what we call dyad experiences and extracurricular activities. So there's still an elective every day for a child. On top of that, they also get additional experiences like piano or martial arts or karate or yoga, photography, those sorts of things. As part of their learning, as part of the year 2035 competencies, they have to have broader perspective. They have to travel. And I know that a lot of our kids have not traveled outside the state, for example. So for our 7th and 8th graders, we want our 8th graders traveling out of country if they meet some eligibility requirements, like they have to have 92% attendance. I know that's hard for some kids, but that's the requirement. You got to come to school to meet these eligibility requirements. And then we'll take you out of country to Japan, for example. That's where the students, where the network I came from, they went to Japan this year. Last year, they went to Costa Rica. And we even got their passports for them. Everything is free for our kids, for our students. And then for 7th graders, it's a trip out of state. So probably Washington, D.C. makes sense, or other place where they can get more experiences through travel. Just a few more things. Safe and orderly environment we already talked about. And that's it. That's in a nutshell what we're trying to do in this Destination 2035. Yes, a lot of it is future oriented. And that's why you see some of those slides with, robots or AI, because in the year 2035, maybe there's not as many robots, but there's certainly machines and AI that's going to be working alongside humans. We got to get our kids ready for that. All right, we're now ready for Q&A. And so someone from communications is going to give you some instructions.
Thank you, Superintendent Miles. It's time for the Q&A portion. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. You can do so by clicking the button in the meeting platform, and I will call your name and unmute you. Our first person is Crystal. Crystal, you may ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Hi, I had a question. At an NES school, my salary as a second grade math teacher with 3 years of experience would be the same as an uncertified teacher assistant with 3 years experience. How do you justify this?
As a teacher assistant, like a teacher apprentice?
Yes.
So I don't know exactly what exactly your salary would be, but we're no longer looking at years of experience, except for the 3-year column, right? Other than that, we're not looking at that. We're looking at the value add. So it's a totally different way of looking at how we pay people. It depends on the value that they bring and the functions that they have. So that's why you see, again, I don't have it in front of me, but I know that language arts and art of thinking, for example, are the highest paid positions. The range is the highest. Even though somebody on a lower range might be making more money than the person in a different range. It just depends on where they are in the scale. So that's how you have to think about it, and not think about the years that you have in the community or in the school system. For example, somebody making 0 years of experience in sixth grade language arts, 0 years of experience. So they're in their first year, they're making the minimum in sixth grade language arts. And I think that minimum is 82,000. So the whole profession, I said, we have to change how we compensate people. And my goal over time is to get everybody raised to where the average salary in the next 2 or 3 years, average salary in the district, not just NES, is 80,000. And it should be higher than that, but let's see what the legislature can do to give us more money, and then we can raise salaries even more.
Okay, now we're gonna call on our next person, Courtney Addison.
Hello, yes. I have a question about the start and end time of school. Does this apply to schools that are not NES?
So thank you for asking. The start and end time of school. So we are working right now on transportation. As you know, a lot of it relies on when our buses can run and a decent rotation. This is a chance for me to clarify. I've said 8 to 4 is the schedule for the NES and NES aligned schools. Because we have so many of them now, 85, we're going to have to shift that just a little bit. So some schools will be 30 minutes ahead, like 7:30 to 3:30. And some schools will be 30 minutes behind, like 7 to 5:30. The doors will open that way. So 7:30 to 3:30 for instruction, 8 to 4 for instruction, or 8:30 to 4:30 for instruction in the NES and NES aligned schools. We're going to try to keep the times for the other schools about the same. So I can't tell you definitively right now, but we're working on the bus schedules as we speak.
Dana Castro.
Hi, yes. I noticed that you said your NES aligned NES schools are now set. They passed the deadline, but what's going to happen to the schools that did not follow procedure or did not follow the way they were supposed to have voted or informed the SD, whoever people and parents of this? Are they going to get to be able to take back and revert back to non-NES?
Nope, no take backs. Now, as far as procedures goes, yes, they were encouraged and more than once to make sure that they talk to different people in their schools, their leadership team, their teachers, and the shared decision-making teams. At the same time, principals also get different inputs from different groups. And in the end, I told them it is a principal decision. That's why we have principals to make those hard choices. And so I feel pretty confident that almost everybody did get input from their staffs and from their community. But in the end of the day, it was a principal decision to join NES.
I now have number 997444. Okay, I'm moving down. I have Omar.
Hi. One of the things you had mentioned as far as like things that wouldn't be tolerated was disrespect towards the teachers. And I was wondering if that would be up to the teacher's discretion or there'd be specific listed examples so that this could be challenged if there were students who wanted to advocate for themselves.
So that's a great question. Here's my answer. Every situation is a little bit different, as you know, but generally speaking, we're going to trust the teachers to be professionals. And when they say a kid is disrespecting them, we're going to counsel and talk to the kid and ensure that the child understands that they cannot disrespect a teacher. Now, there will be times when we have a teacher who really doesn't understand or has a different definition of disrespect. I think I've told you all an example of such a teacher in my experience, where the teacher was a sixth grade teacher and two boys in her class kept rolling their eyes. And she thought that was disrespect, and she asked them to leave the classroom and called an administrator or learning coach over. They took the kids to the office, and we found out that they were just rolling their eyes. Now, we had a conversation with that teacher after the fact, but we're not going to debate at the moment whether a teacher feels disrespected or not. We're going to take the teacher's word. Nothing happened to those two kids. They sat out the rest of that period. They got on and virtually back in the classroom. But then we had a conversation with that teacher later saying, look, rolling their eyes, that's what sixth graders do, and that is not disruptive. And is it disrespectful? Maybe, but come on, we have got to be better than that as a teacher with regard to tolerating kid behavior. So the short answer is, yeah, we're going to respect the teacher. We're going to take that child and talk to that child, and then but we're not going to disrespect the teacher in front of the kids by not taking the kids out.
Renita Searcy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, I think someone already kind of asked this question, but that was one of my big anxieties. I've been with HIC this is my 10th year, and my concern was my pay changing and not for the good. So I understand what you're saying about performance, but I'm a PE teacher. So how would that work? Because I have my certification. I went to college. I have my degree in kinesiology. I'm minor in adaptive physical education. And I feel like, we have the whole school. So I just don't want to feel like, I went to college like all the other teachers did. So I feel like PE shouldn't be pushed under the rug because of an English class. Or I shouldn't feel like I shouldn't have to take a lower pay because I'm already at 2 years. And I know you said that it's going to be based off performance, but how would that look for an elective class?
Okay, so number one, you're not going to lose any money. Remember, whatever if the NES schedule compensation plan has you making less money, on the scale, you will keep the salary you would have made this coming year, meaning the salary you made last year plus the step, right? So you're not going to lose any money going to NES. So that's number one. Number two, again, we all have to shift our thinking. This is not about years of credit or years of experience in college credit. That's the step and lane. And I get it, 99% of all schools in America, actually probably more than that, use a step and lane. We're not doing that. We're doing a hospital model or a pay for performance model where the position is looked at differently and is valued differently, just like a neurosurgeon is a doctor, but makes more money than a general practitioner who's also a doctor. So a teacher is not a teacher, is a teacher, just like a doctor is not a doctor, is not a doctor. They add different things. And yes, I'm going to look you in the eye right now and say, because nobody else in America wants to say it, right now, if we're behind in reading, and we are, 2/3 of our students are not reading at grade level. 89% of our African-American kids, our Black kids, are not reading at grade level in 4th grade. I need a reading surgeon. I need a reading surgeon, and I'm willing to pay the surgeon the hours that they make. I have to say that I still value sports and electives. We're not cutting those out. We're adding martial arts and dance and all that. But I don't need a PE teacher as much as I need a reading surgeon. And if that's a philosophy that you don't agree with, then NES is not the school to be in.
Missy Schluter.
Yes. My child goes to a magnet school that has a very substantial program for decades. The school is doing pretty good, but as you go up the feeder pattern, there are concerns. So is the magnet program at my child's elementary going to be taken away?
Magnet program or magnet school?
It's a magnet school with a magnet program.
Okay, so we're not changing the magnet schools. Magnet schools will not be NES or NES aligned unless the magnet school wants to be down the road. But we have no plans for magnet schools. The magnet programs, we've said we're going to try to keep and try to accommodate through the electives and the dyad program and after school programs. And that's a school by school decision. So if it's a magnet school, I think you don't have to worry, but magnet programs will still try to accommodate.
McCrean family.
Hi, my kids attend Madison, and my question is regarding transportation. 85% of the school year, transportation didn't pick them up or was picking them up late. I had to try to find somebody to bring them to school. And a lot of times they had to call the bus terminal, and the bus terminal had to send a bus back out to pick them up to bring them to school. What changes are being implemented this year to prevent that from happening?
So it's hard to change a whole transportation system over the summer. In any case, we're working on it right now to try to make it more effective. We will have several dry runs. We're hiring more bus drivers. As you know, part of the reason why you had some of the challenges with bus routes is when you don't have bus drivers showing up. So we're looking closely at that. We might have to raise salaries for bus drivers. We're looking at a lot of options. Long term, and this is in the Destination 2035 plan, we're going to be piloting and experimenting with an Uber type transportation system for our parents who are willing to use it, which will cost nothing for the parents or the students. But that way you can pick up the phone or arrange early, pre-arrange transportation with a secure background check driver. It may not be Uber, but like an Uber. And that driver gets more money if they pick up more than one or two kids. And then we'll have that program, which will be probably more reliable and efficient than our bus system today. Now that's a work in progress, so it's probably not going to happen this year unless we can get it going by second semester for some schools where we'll pilot it, and hopefully you'll enjoy that. But that's a long-term plan. But I recognize that transportation is an issue. It is in most large cities these days due to COVID and the depletion of the workforce. So understand your concerns, and we're going to try to do better.
Southwest Congregation.
I was wondering why Lamar High School specifically did not offer a reading list for the students when they were coming for the summer holidays.
Did not offer a what list?
Some kind of reading list for their students, because I have children, two sons there, and neither of them was provided a reading list for the summer. And I picked that question because you said reading was a key matter for you, and yet a school like Lamar, offer students, when you go to the summer, read so many X number of books and something like that.
Yeah, I don't know is the answer. I think it's a good practice for schools to have a reading list to encourage students to read over the summer. So I don't know whether one was provided or not.
Elaine D.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I wanted to know how much autonomy teachers will have over the activities and lessons at the NES and NES aligned schools. We understand there's to be scripted lessons that we're going to be provided. The district has been provided as scripted lessons for the past few years, but we still had some autonomy over them. So at the campuses, could there be a little more clarity on what those scripted lessons would be like, and if teachers would be able to still have activities to supplement the lessons and curriculum?
So let me just make sure we're clear on the language. When someone says scripted, sometimes that means that it's detailed so that what the teacher says is written down, and then the students have a chance to respond to this, and then this is, you say this, and that's a scripted lesson. What we're talking about is lesson plans, the PowerPoints, the demonstration of learning. So that's where we're going to provide to the NES and the NES aligned schools those lesson plans, those PowerPoints. So teachers still have some leeway, but the topic, the TEAC that is supposed to be taught will be taught that day through the provided lesson plans. And so there won't be autonomy to choose your lesson plans or the TEAC, the objective. There is some autonomy in how you teach it.
Sue.
Hello.
Hi.
I would like to ask, what will the multilingual department roles be, and Hattie May? And what kind of support can the campuses, teachers, and parents expect for dual language?
So the multilingual department will continue to support dual language and language translation and supports for other students with other languages in the schools. That's their main job. So that hasn't changed. Dual language will continue in the schools that have dual language. And I think I think that answers the question, but ask again if there's some part that I didn't answer.
I guess I'm curious about what, if you know and can talk about any specific supports that maybe are supposed to be there that we can look forward to that may not have been there in the past.
I don't know, because I don't know what was there in the past, but I know that we'll make sure that we have materials in both English and Spanish when we talk about the lesson plans for dual language classes. We know, I've already said over and over again that we're going to do the science of reading, especially for the elementary grades, in English, and then we'll supplement with Spanish. We still will have Spanish-speaking teachers in the dual language program, because kids will take as close to 50% of their classes and courses in Spanish as possible.
Roselia.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, can.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is around just general mental health nurturing of our youth, especially after COVID and just the collective trauma that continues in a city like Houston that is a trafficking hub, as we know. I'm really excited to see that community members are going to be teaching classes. That's really, I teach yoga, so I hope to be one of them.
Yeah, that's great.
And I'm really excited too about the focus on AI and technology, especially with all the innovation tech hubs that are happening, that are popping up around Houston.
Yeah.
So just my general question is just how are we nurturing their mental health, and also just being aware of the detrimental effects of technology. That's just my general question. Thank you.
No, you're right on the mark on several things. There is a detrimental part of technology, and we have to be careful around that. You'll see in the LSE, the instructional model at the school, we use a lot of paper and old-fashioned books to help teach our kids, so they have something tangible. But we also will do some of the learning, ELA, math, science, online, because that's the workplace of the future, right? So they have to have both. As far as social emotional learning and wraparound services, you're absolutely right. This has been a tough several years for our kids, and we know that we haven't regained everything from COVID, and the world just seems to get a little bit more stressful every day. Not just because of COVID, just lots of things, and lots of things on the minds of young people. So we will keep the wraparound service specialists. We will continue to have social workers, school psychologists. When needed, counselors will still be there. And then we're adding sunrise servers and sunrise centers, and we are going to be supporting community efforts to help our kids. So the sunrise centers are supposed to be done jointly with the community, so that we help the community that's helping our kids, so that we provide more supports to the community and ask for more help from the community, and also contribute our share to those community efforts. Pro Unitas is going to continue, so we will continue to have a good tracking system for the supports that we get. And if we can do that in a more aligned way, then we think we'll give our kids the services that they need.
Jesse?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you. Okay, so I first wanted to start off with that I looked up the NAEP data online, and the report states specifically that the definition of proficient is not intended to reflect grade level performance expectations. So if by any chance you would, going forward, not refer to that specific information as being on grade level, I would appreciate that. Then my question is how, on Tuesday, you confirmed that parents can transfer out of NES aligned schools or NES schools if they didn't have a say in the SDMC meeting. So I wanted to see what would be the process for parents to do that.
So it's a normal process of making an application to transfer your child. That's what it'd be. With regard to the NAEP, proficient is what, it's a little bit different for any test that you want to name. So proficient and above is very similar to meet expectations or higher. So in every case, the definition of even being grade level, on grade level is a little bit different. But as a proxy for grade level, we use proficiency, right? So a kid is meets or exceeds, we say they're about grade level proficient. If a kid on the NAEP is proficient or higher, then we say they're, that's a proxy for being at grade level. And they want to be careful not to say grade level because it's slightly different depending on the exam that you're talking about. But I think you get the overall picture. We don't need to nitpick the difference between 32 on the NAEP and any other score that's higher. You know, that's a low score, and that means our kids, by their definition, are not proficient. And by our definition, we can say, in general, they're not meeting the expectations of what most people would expect them to be able to do.
Amy Martinez.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi there, Mr. Miles. I first of all want to say thank you for taking on this role. I'm super excited about what is and I have 3 young kids. They all attend South Maid Elementary School. I have 2 that this past year, they were, I guess, diagnosed with the special needs part of the program, not the 504, but I wanted to know if anything's going to change, like if anything's going to be cut from like the resources that they have, or actually if any resources are going to be added to those programs. Like, for example, one is in speech therapy. So he gets it 2 times a week, and I know he needs more than that. And the other one, well, they're both in like a reading program through the special education. So that's my number one question is anything being cut from that? Because the school that we are in, they did not opt in to the NES. So
yeah,
my question.
Thanks for asking. It's a very important question. By the way, I'm too old to have an IEP. They didn't have IEP in those days, but I had a speech impediment. I would have needed a speech therapist. I got lucky. I had 2 first-grade teachers who took me by the hand and said they're going to spend their time helping me learn how to speak. So they used their planning period. During phonics class, I went to them instead of staying in class. During one recess a day, they took me and I spent time with them instead of outside with the kids, but they taught me how to speak. And so I'm very, very grateful. I know how important those sorts of interventions are. So to answer your question, we're not taking away any services from the special ed program or the special needs students. However, we are prioritizing to add services or resources to the NES and NES aligned schools. Those are the schools where the special ed teacher will get a special education assistant to help with the paperwork, with the IEPs, with the ARD meetings, with progress monitoring. We'll also they'll have lower caseloads if we can in those schools. So we're going to be adding services to those schools. That's 1/3 of the district. And then we will expand that to the rest of the district. But, you know, all of these things are costly, so we have to start somewhere. But for sure, we won't be taking anything away from the other schools.
Neil?
Okay, very good. Thank you. Good evening, sir. You referenced just a moment ago a hospital method of pay. You said that was divergent from 98 or 99% of the way other school districts are doing things. It seems to me, sir, that you're able to enact such a radical divergence from other practices because you're free of democratic control. We have one school, one board of manager member who in an unpatriotic fashion was defeated at the polls and now is supplanting the person who defeated her. How can genuine progress be made? Or how can any measure of public safety, you referenced safety before, there's no public safety without democracy. How can there be progress in any fashion outside of democratic elections or respect for the vote of the people of Houston who've lost an elected school board in what just 60 years ago was a Jim Crow city?
So first of all, that didn't take this board of managers to put this in place. I did something similar in Harrison School District in Colorado Springs. And it's well known what we did in Dallas was also a pay for performance system. And those were elected boards, both Dallas and the Harrison School District. So the one doesn't necessarily exclude the other, right? So with regard to the democratic processes, I think that's a larger political question. I think we could debate whether it's democratic or not when there's a school district that's failing that didn't take advantage of other recourses besides takeover. I think you're going to see at the end of the day, we're going to turn around the district. We're going to help hundreds of thousands of kids. And then I'm going to work myself out of a job. And so are the board of managers.
George?
Lamar High School. I spent $600 just to get her uniform last year, and I didn't get everything. And we could only go to one store in Bel Air to buy the stuff there. Then when she went back to school, I don't know if they have pedophile teachers or pedophile parents. And I'm only saying that because older girls can only wear the skirts up to their butts. You can literally see their underwear. One of the girls, she was suspended for having her skirt up to her knee for a week. Okay, and I brought this up to HSD at the beginning of the school year, and that school has 5 principals, 4 below and 1 on the high. The one on the high, the lady that goes there, she tried to cover up everything, and everybody's wearing moccasins, those Crocs, and they're wearing, they're not even wearing the school uniform. They're wearing sweatpants and all that. So do I have to buy another, $600 worth of stuff for her this year? And that's not counting school supplies. The jacket by itself is $100. Why can't I go somewhere else and buy her stuff instead of whoever owns that store, and we as parents have to buy the stuff from there?
Those are good questions. I don't have an answer for you. What I will do is when I go out to Lamar, or when I see the principal next, I'll ask them about that and try to get more clarity around that. It does seem kind of unusual. It also, it's disturbing to me that we have to pay so much for uniforms. That doesn't seem right to me. So let me find out more about it. I can tell you that all the schools I've ever served in have been underserved schools. And in those schools, for example, in the network that I just left, we always had parents buy their polo shirts. That was the only thing that needed to be bought for $15. And if the student didn't have the polo shirt or money to buy the polo shirt, we gave the family 2 shirts for each kid. We didn't have that much money, so we can't keep buying shirts for kids who don't take care of them, but 2 shirts per kid. And that was on our dime because many of our families could not afford, extra uniform money. So I'm sorry, I don't know. And I will try to find out a little bit more about it.
Rafi Escobar.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for everything that you're doing and you're working on for our students. I was one of the few parents that actually welcomed the takeover, and I'm really excited to your offers of turning the district around, and I've enjoyed watching your presentations. I do want to, I'm a special education advocate. I have a student in Lamar High School. He has several disabilities, but thankfully he is a student in the general ed setting. So I do want to point out that I've heard you say a couple of times students special needs, and it's important for us to remember that not all students with disabilities should be called special needs, because that it's a term of endearment, but because these are students who, without their special education services, then they end up not performing. Students who would otherwise perform even a grade level, without these supports, they're failing. We're failing our students because of the lack of special education. And I wanted to touch on why you're here. And one of the reasons for the takeover was because of the district's failure, massive and persistent failure with special ed. So my question is to you, what's going to happen with all those directors, right? Because I see you have not been timid. You have not been shy to hold people accountable. And that was my thing always. So and I love that you use data and processes. So I've not heard you speak about, or maybe I've missed it, what processes are going to be in place to hold those directors accountable? Are they going to be moved? In principles, because special education comes down to principles and directors for accountability. And also, will you reactivate the special education parent advisory board? That was something that was very valuable that we would like to engage with the district and allow to have that transparent and open dialogue and collaboration. And lastly, with the science of reading, we know that as my student has dyslexia as well, there were millions of dollars in a grant for reading, and they were used by NIHouse. That was a marvelous program. And now the district all of a sudden did without, and you want to implement reading by design, which, let me tell you, reach out to us advocates. It's not working. It doesn't have the science behind it. So can you please speak on the special education department and services and the parent advisory board and the science of reading? And thank you so much.
And so we could have a 30-minute discussion, but I'm going to give you the short version of all of that. You're absolutely right. One of the three charges that I have, the second bucket, is to comply with state and federal law in special education and improve our special education services. That's a huge part. It goes back to 2011 when the first report came out that we weren't meeting state and federal compliance, and it's been bad since then. So that's one of the reasons for the intervention, and that's one of the things I have to do. So there's lots that we're going to be doing, but you also said something that was very telling as well, and that is special education services comes down to what's happening at the school level, the teachers' instruction in the classroom, and the principals' monitoring and coaching of the teachers. So we're going to place, for the first time, special education and the provision of special education services and special education achievement on the principal evaluation system. 20% of their evaluation is tied to special education services. And that's never happened before, but it sends a signal to all principals that, look, this is your responsibility. You cannot walk by the special needs classroom and and just go to the language arts classroom or the math class. You also have to be in those classrooms, coaching teachers and ensuring that our kids are getting the best education possible. We're also providing, I think I said earlier, special education teacher assistants, not paraeducators. There's a role for paraeducators too in the life skills classes, but teacher assistants to help the special educator so that they have the time to instruct well and to provide and also meet the compliance issues and make sure the IEPs are written well and really tied to the progress of the student. So there's a lot more I can say about that, but that's generally it. With regard to the group you mentioned, I have to learn more about it. I'm open to hearing from anybody, especially special needs parents. So let me do a little research, okay, before I can promise anything around that. And the third thing, you're right also about the science of reading. One of the reasons why some kids get labeled special ed or special needs is some of them just can't read well and haven't been taught to read. So we have to have a reading curriculum in special education that that is strong and tied to the science of reading. So I think someone took notes on what program you mentioned, and so I'll look that up, and the curriculum department will too, so that we make sure that our special education teachers who teach reading also have a science-based reading curriculum.
Kathleen Johnson.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, hi. I had well, a couple of questions. The previous person who was the special education an advocate, she actually had some of my same questions. One of them being how that model will look. I know you spoke on the special education assistant. Is this person certified? Is this another certified teacher that has the knowledge base of special education? That's one. The other question I have, my son is an upcoming a rising senior. And are there any, do you foresee any changes for those that are getting ready to graduate? And then the other one is for the dyslexia piece as well. I know myself, I'm also with the district and in special education. And I know previously, even when I did dyslexia intervention, when I did it, we were selected by the principal. And I did the NIHouse, and then it changed to reading by design. And again, that was an appointment through the administrator. So my thing is, will those persons for dyslexia intervention, reading intervention, will those persons be selected by the principals again, or will this be a different type of approach?
So first, the teacher apprentices are teachers. Hopefully most of them will be certified. And then I'm sure some of them will be certified in special education, but that is not a requirement for them. They will assist the certified and certified special education teacher. So they're getting paid well because they have at least a bachelor's degree, and most of them will have teacher certifications. With regard to the high school kids, especially juniors and seniors, they won't see much difference except for stronger career tech ed programs. We know they've been through their high school careers already, or towards the end of their high school careers, and that they're meeting credit requirements. So we don't want to disrupt that, just to provide stronger instruction and to provide more career tech ed options if we can. And then finally, with dyslexia, that's we're going to rely heavily on the special ed department and the special ed so providers in the units, not the schools, to hire the dyslexia teachers and to guide them in their programming.
Veronica.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yes. I have two sons who actually in total have three. There are, all of them have autism, which they're in different places of the spectrum. My eldest just graduated, I was promoted from Benavides Elementary, which I saw is going to be an NES school. My question to you is, how are you going to tackle that, well, those schools that do not have a principal and that do not have a special education teacher? Because in my personal experiences that my son through those 5 years that he was at that school. Like not even 2 years, he had well, actually not even like 6 months a certified teacher, and a full year a teacher becoming certified in the process.
Yeah,
and then I have another son that is gonna go and start the health program, which is now gonna be ECI at Benavides Elementary. So I really would like to know, how you're gonna do that, because we've been without a principal for about, since the beginning of the year.
So we're working hard right now. I think we have almost all principal positions filled. There may be some that are not, and I know the executive directors are working on that. So we hope to start the school year off with effective principals. I'm very sympathetic to the question about not having a special ed teacher in the school for a period of time. The whole profession has suffered in the last 3 years since COVID, and now just because of the way the economy is and things like that, we have more and more teachers leaving the profession, and it's harder to get a special education teacher, certified one, across the nation. So we're going to do our best effort. We're working now to try to decrease the number of vacancies and try to start the school year off with 0 vacancies or close to 0. Last year, there were 644 vacancies at the start of the school year. So we'll try to get that number down, including, of course, special ed teachers. And throughout the year, we'll try to replace teachers who leave as soon as we can.
Amanda Gross.
We're going to be running out of time. You might want to take some chat. Amanda, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question. I am very proud to have my son in HISD. I'm also a new teacher, so thank you very much for the opportunity. My question is in regards to cameras. I am a supporter of this, and I just have a general question of what's going to happen and who's looking at that material and how will it impact the kids? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I believe you're talking about the webcams in the classroom, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the webcams in the classrooms are not about the teacher, they're about the kids. One of the things we learned, and we're not keeping a record of it, one of the things I learned during COVID, my network did, is we did synchronous teaching, and kids feel better online. About 20% of the students were online and the rest were in person. The online kids felt better if they could actually participate, right? So the webcam shows the classroom. It's not focused on the teacher. And that way, when a kid learns virtually through Zoom, like we're doing right now, they get to see all the other kids. And when the child at home asks a question, the whole class hears that child because there's a speaker. The teacher is wearing a lavalier or mobile mic so that when she or he walks around the classroom, the kid at home hears easily, hears what she's saying. So it's as if the kid, because there are pictures on the wall, because we also project the kids online on the wall, and the kid at home can see the kids in the classroom. It's as if they're in the classroom, and the other kids in the classroom can also see those kids and hear them. So that's what it's about. It's more about engaging the student rather than viewing the teacher.
Katie Wallace wants to know, will the 8th grade travel incentive include the TCAH students, Texas Connections Academy?
Well, that's a good question. The Texas Connections Academy. I just had a meeting with them. I'll have to think about that, but I think, their HISD students are learning virtually. So my first impulse is that, yes, I mean, if they're 7th and 8th grade students and they meet the same requirements. Now, having said that, we're starting with NES and NES aligned schools first, and then we're going to broaden it. So it may be a year or two before that happens.
If the math data reflected is lower / worse than reading, why is the focus on reading?
If the math scores are lower
/ worse than reading.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Here's the answer. Math is important, and it's a way of thinking more than anything else. And so we need to have math and math skills. At the same time, you cannot access almost any other subject without being able to read. And when you think about the workplace and learning how to learn, a lot of it has to do with reading first. So that's why reading is a focus rather than math. But don't get me wrong, I mean, we're going to put a lot of time and energy in math skills as well.
Will NES aligned schools have librarians in elementary?
No.
And how much autonomy will teachers have over activities and lessons in the NES and NES aligned schools?
So very similar to a question I got earlier, they will have some autonomy on how they instruct, the number of multiple response strategies they use, but they won't have autonomy over the lesson objective that they have to teach, the lesson plans. Those will be provided for the teacher. If the teacher wants to tweak them and change them in a way that doesn't substantively change the lesson objective and the demonstration of learning, that's okay.
I have a parent that wants to know, can you elaborate more on your open door policy?
Yes, so we'll be smart about this. If there's doors that are open to the outside, or you're right next to the gymnasium, or has a broken door handle or something, we'll make sure that those doors remain closed. But all other doors in the district, when we teach, our doors are open. It instills an environment of professionalism and actually is more conducive to good collaboration and good coaching. And teachers shouldn't have anything to hide. People should be able to see what's going on in the classroom all the time.
Final question, how will you enhance CTE?
How will we enhance CTE? So part of that is about resources. And we have a lot of good magnet programs and CTE programs in many parts of the district. And in some parts of the district, the programs aren't as robust or not tied as much to year 2035. And so what we have to do is look closely, and I've been to Barbara Jordan, for example, look at other CTE programs in the district, and we're going to try to upgrade, provide more future-oriented career tech ed. For example, one of the things I want to do in almost everywhere is to make sure that there's a class or an elective or CTE program about using AI in the workplace. That's something we need to do now. It's here, so we might as well teach our kids how to use it. If you're 11th and 12th grader, you're going to see it in the workplace in the next few years. So that's what I mean by upgrading our CTE programs. Let me close. I know we're a little bit over. Thanks for hanging in there, everybody. And thanks for asking these questions, really thoughtful questions. So it's really thoughtful questions, and I appreciate that. And hopefully you'll be coming to one of the community events that we hold away from Hattie Mae. All right, thanks for your time.